The afterlife. Does it exist? This is a common question asked amongst most, but why is it so secret? Welcome to Secrets Within, a show about all things paranormal straight from the investigator's mouth. No fluffy scripting here, just raw paranormal talk about ghosts, Bigfoot, black-eyed children, equipment, and more. Host Rini Rodriguez is no stranger to the paranormal and has been fascinated for years. One of her longtime passions is being a medium and further developing her skills. She's also a certified Reiki master and paranormal investigator. Now, here is your host of Secrets Within, Rini Rodriguez.
Hi everyone, welcome to Secrets Within. I am here with Tory, and we are going to be talking about her latest books that she has out. So, as you guys know, Tory does run the Paranormal Help Desk, but for the last 6 months, she's been writing a book. But she's got many books out, so I'll let you take it away, Tory.
Well, I don't even know where to start.
She doesn't. She never does.
Maybe we should just start where this series actually came to be. This actually all started with Malvern Manor in Iowa. I had the pleasure of speaking to Josh at a Paracon several years ago. And I remember asking him, I was like, how many people have died in the manor? Because I think that a lot of people they think that like the amount of deaths or the number of people that died into a particular location is synonymous of whether or not it's haunted or not, which I don't necessarily believe is true. But I mean, maybe it is. I don't know. I guess I'm not really an expert in that sense. But
we're not gonna go there.
We're not gonna open that can of worms.
Not today.
But so I started doing some digging, and I ended up finding quite a few. Let me see. I just messed up my spreadsheet. Let me get.
You probably have like this whole spreadsheet. That's just Tory.
I do. Oh, there we go. Okay. So with Malvern Manor, I ended up finding 168 names that I could absolutely 100% prove died on property.
Mm-hmm.
So
how did you go about that though? Like, how did you prove it?
I went through and I looked at tons and tons and bazillions of newspaper articles. I started with like newspaper articles, and I started to look up things about these people. And I've actually We Are Malvern Manor was my first one, and Josh helped me with that one.
I have that one. It's a good one.
Yeah, Josh and I have done, let's see, We Are Malvern. Edinburgh was our next one, or Edinburgh, or Edinburgh. It just depends on where you're from. It depends. It determines on how you say it. I always say it wrong, but
of course you do.
Edinburgh was our second. Well, actually, We Are Malvern Manor News was our second.
Mm-hmm.
Edinburgh was our third, and then Randolph County Infirmary was our fourth.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just got done. After that point, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. So I ended up doing Asylum 49 on my own. The children. I released a children's book for Asylum 49.
Well, let's back that up real quick. It's not an actual children's book. Like she didn't.
No. These are all the children.
It's a children's book. It's like a children's book. No, it's not a children's book. I'm not going to buy it for my 5-year-old. Like, here you go.
No. Well, please. I mean, you could buy it for your 5-year-old. However, I mean, I don't know. It's full of a lot of things. a lot of things. Nothing like bad, I would say.
No, I
but
mean he can't read anyways, but you mean it's like it's a children's book. And I was
yeah.
like, wait, no, it's not a children's book. It doesn't have like those cool little drawings in there. Like kind of
So I'm kind of like looking at different tabs while I'm on here. So hopefully I don't have a booger hanging out of my nose and don't know it or something. But
I'd let you know.
sweet. I appreciate that. So with Asylum 49, I ended up I'm going to have to break it up into 5 books.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the largest book that I've done to date. I spoke with the owner, Kim Anderson, and he is super excited about this book because nobody's really ever looked into it, or at least not to my knowledge. Not that anybody's told him or me or whatever. Asylum 49 used to be the old Tooele Valley Hospital, and it's located in Tooele, Utah. And that's just like probably about 30 minutes outside of Salt Lake City. But it used to be a hospital, and I actually got the idea from my dear friend Richard Estep. He asked me if I would look into it, and I talked to Kim, and we ended up agreeing that we would look into it. But this is our biggest book, and just adults alone, I have found 1,296, or I'm sorry, total 1,297 people that has died on that property. So I'm going to have to break it up into sections. So I had enough names of children and infants that died there that I was able to do a book on just them, and I have 179 of those. So we are going to, I did that one first, was the children. But
was that one a little bit harder for you, considering that they were children?
It was. Terrible things happen to people. It's just not fair. You know what I mean? Some of the things that I see just aren't fair. And it is sad, and it is, it's disheartening because, I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, a vast majority, I would say, were probably stillbirths, but then you also have that is about half and half, probably, you know, traumatic deaths like car accidents and drownings and, you know, shootings and things like that.
Right.
So yeah, with Malvern Manor, and I'm actually in the process of revamping We Are Malvern Manor, because I've learned a lot since that book came out. When I wrote that book, when Josh and I wrote that book, I was finding all these newspaper articles and things, and I thought, well, you know, I'm just going to put these newspaper articles in there, you know, the obituaries and things like that. I didn't even really think about death certificates in that aspect, because it just depends on the state, and death certificates are kind of tricky when you're trying to do any kind of research. Hi, Tony. Death certificates, like Kansas does not consider death certificates public domain. In Kansas, you cannot find any death certificate on any genealogy site because they don't consider that public domain, and they don't release those. Now with, I believe it's Iowa. Iowa will release death certificates once 75 years have passed. So they have to be dead for 75 years in order for you to have access to those death certificates. Like Randolph County Infirmary, which is in Winchester, Indiana, theirs was different. I found death certificates all the way up until like the 1980s on some people. If a family has taken that death certificate and uploaded it to a genealogy site or a Fonda grave or any of that, then I would have access to those. Then I would be able to see those.
So basically, it's like state from state, like different states have like their own laws on like birth certificate or death certificates, not birth certificates, but death certificates.
Yeah, it is. It's a state by state thing.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing research for our local poor farm because
Mm-hmm.
Edinburgh was a poor farm, Randolph County was a poor farm. I kind of have a special place in my heart for poor farms, and um, I'll kind of show everybody a book. I have Edinburgh with me. This is the only one I got with me. It's pretty thick, but we'll go over that here in a minute, just so you guys can see what's in these things. So, because I often wonder, like when people see it, they're like, "What is that about?" I don't understand. What am I getting in this book? And I feel like that's a valid question, because like looking at the covers, I mean, you just don't really know. And I'm not a professional book writer by any stretch of the imagination, but I like to try to keep it as simple as possible, just because, I mean, I don't feel like it needs to be complex at all, because I mean, I just don't.
She's not a very complex person, anyways.
No. I like my goals and Josh's goals were to make it easy to understand, easy to read. We wanted it to where you could find the information quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you go into a haunted location, I think it's important to know the background. I think it's important to know who you may or may not be communicating with, as far as a location. And actually, We Are Malvern Manor, that was honestly the only book that we were going to do, that we're like, we want to put that out for Malvern Manor. We want to do that so people have an idea of, who they're talking to. And it's actually pretty cool. I'll go into a couple stories. Like,
I
don't know.
actually have that one.
Mm-hmm.
I do have that one.
But while we were at an event, I can't even remember what event it was. I want to say it was one of Richard Estep's events. We were selling the book on at this table, and a woman named Kat approached me.
Mm-hmm.
And she gave tours at Edinburgh Manor, and she was talking about We Are Malvern Manor. And she's like, I wish somebody would do that for Edinburgh, because we don't really know a whole lot. And we started talking about it. I was like, well, what was it? And she was like, it was an old poor farm, and I did a lot of research. What are poor farms and what were they used for? I've learned so much stuff over the course of all this. And when we were talking, she's like, I just wish that, we had this kind of information that was easy to have access to. Because, I mean, you have like your local historical societies and things like that. And it just depends on whether or not they're a poor farm, like whether or not they were aware of it. My local historical society was not aware that we even had a poor farm. So when I was like, do you have any information on the poor farm? And they're like, well, we'd have to know what farm you're talking about, because they thought I was talking about like a specific person's farm. I was like, no, I'm talking about the poor farm, the county asylum, the almshouse. These are all names, the county home. And they had no idea. So I offered to do the research for free, which I have completed that one. And they'll be getting a copy of that, because I'm crazy, I guess. But talking to Kat, she is the one that prompted We Are Edinburgh Manor. She worked with me on that. All of the pictures in that book are pictures that she took. She really did a very amazing job, and we talked a lot throughout the course of that book being published. It was crazy. The local, I believe it was not them, it was Randolph County, that the Historical Society didn't want to help at all. They were not willing to share any records with me. I think it was Randolph County. I can't remember.
Why do you know why they didn't want to share any records with you whatsoever? Did they give you a reason, or just kind of like whatever?
They said if they wanted to make money on the book, they would write one themselves. That's what they told me. I mean, maybe I shouldn't have said that out loud, but
it is what it is. Okay.
That's what they told me. all I wanted was a list of names, so I knew where to start. Everything
Mhm.
that I found in these books are things that I found on my own on public websites. Everything that is open to the public. I use Ancestry. I use Find a Grave. I use Family Search. I just use Google, newspapers.com, newspaperarchives.com. I use, I can't remember the other one. There's another one that I use. There's so many of them. I have them all bookmarked. I just look for the icon and click on it anymore when I'm searching things. The biggest problem with Malvern Manor is Malvern has not digitized all of their newspaper archives, which is a problem for me because all of my research is internet based. I don't live close to any of these places. Edinburgh, I think I'm like 8 hours. Randolph County, I'm like 12 hours. Utah, I'm like way, way further than that. But Malvern hasn't digitized. And I've noticed that a lot of times when I'm doing searches for like specific names and things like that, I would end up finding stuff later in pursuit of other information because it was not hitting on my search terms and so that has always been a big issue. So I've never, I think it's fair to say that all of these books, I could almost guarantee there's probably way more than this is probably just maybe the lion's share of them because, things always go under the table. There's things that are missed. I'm human. These are not complete lists by any stretch of the imagination, but I tried to make them as complete as possible.
Well, if you found some new information, would you rewrite? Well, I don't want to say rewrite, but would you do like a whole nother book on it?
Yes, it just depends on how much information. Like I said, I'm in the middle of revamping We Are Malvern Manor. I found more names that were not in the original book. And I've I like I said, I've learned a lot since Josh and I did that one. And We Are Malvern Manor, it's a vast majority of those are just like obituaries that I could find. Like we have Eunice Stamper. A lot of people don't know about Eunice. She was a 12-year-old girl that died on property, and I believe it was 1909 or 1910. She died of diphtheria. I have access to that death certificate, and it never even crossed my mind to put that death certificate into that book. And then when I was doing Edinburgh, which was our second book, I realized that I had access to all of these death certificates. And I thought, man, that would be a cool thing if people could sit there and look at these death certificates and see what the cause of death was. There's a ton of information on a death certificate. Let me find a good example here. Like Mabel Miller out of Edinburgh. This is what a death certificate looks like. On the death certificate, it has their full name. It has their date of birth, their place of birth, their date of death. It has their occupation. It has like their parents' names, usually somewhere around in here. This is the cause of death right in here. This one died from a cerebral hemorrhage. So that'd be like a hemorrhagic stroke. It has these areas right here. Usually there is hospital or institution. This is the Jones County House. So they're referring to the Jones County Poor Farm. They used to call it a county house, an almshouse, poor farm, county asylum, all of those things. And then like if they were staying at the county house, it would be here, but like their normal address would be like over here.
Okay.
Down here with death certificates, down here in like these areas, it tells you like where they're buried. It tells you who removed them, like what funeral home they went to. It tells like who was notified or who claimed the body. Well, not really claimed it, but said, yeah, that's who that is. Type person. It's all right in here. Um, the death certificates have kind of changed over, like over time. Like when you get into like the early 1900s and things like that, death certificates were a lot more simple back then. As time went on, they got more complex and started to contain more information. So I started looking at like death certificates in this particular county
Mm-hmm.
to see what I could come up with. And then I would cross reference those to like newspaper articles, and I would put the newspaper articles and things like that. One thing that people, I'm huge into like genealogy and people knowing where they came from and that
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. Poor farms back in the day, sometimes these people lived decades in poor farms. Sometimes the only family they had were the people within the walls of that institution. They had, they were used for like people that couldn't afford to live out in society, people that were too sick to work, people that couldn't work because they were sick. Tuberculosis was
Mm-hmm.
a big cause of that. Like just like your elderly and just people being generally unwell back then. We don't have the medicine that we do today. Um, uh, People that were mentally unstable, people that suffered from mental illness. Sometimes they would remove people from like the county asylums, like
Mm-hmm.
the insane asylums, and they would put them on poor farms whenever they were overrun. They would just move them to a poor farm when they started running out of room. People from the jail would go to the poor farm. If they were out of room in the jail, they would just shift them over to the poor farm and keep them there.
Well, I mean, were they like, they weren't like violent criminals, right? At these poor farms, correct?
I mean, they could be.
I was just asking. I mean,
like I don't really know. They could be. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how they decided who got to go and who didn't. Like,
that'd be
I just
interesting
know
to
it
like
happened.
know, like, you know what I mean? Like, it'd be interesting.
Yeah,
Like, what was the criteria for that?
yeah. I don't honestly, just seeing the documents that I've seen, I
Mm-hmm.
have not seen any kind of rhyme or reason on why they did the things that they did.
Right.
There was nothing that I could tell, as far as that I could tell,
Mm-hmm.
that would indicate that there was a criteria one way or another. Um, but yeah, the poor farms, and they were mandatory by the government
Mm-hmm.
as the county's way of taking care of their poor or people that weren't able to live in society on their own. And then the able-bodied would they would work. They grew their own crops. They would harvest their own meat, have their own cows, make their own milk, butter, all of that stuff. It was supposed to be like a functioning mini society, basically. And then they would also sell these products to the general public in order to maintain, like repairs and things like that.
Right.
But Edinburgh was the first poor farm that we did, and that was thanks to Kat. And I am grateful that she asked me to look into this. It was honestly, it was a good thing. Like, that's where I fell in love with poor farms. And then we ended up with Randolph County. One of the cool things about Edinburgh was Destination Fear had just
Mm-hmm.
been there. Um, and I remember asking Kat, I was like, how many people do you guys have? That's always my first question, is how many people do you have that were recorded? How many deaths can you prove?
Mm-hmm.
Because my goal is to always find more than that. I was trying to see if I said that. I was wanting to say it was like 150 or something like that. And I found 234.
Oh, wow.
So there's 234 deaths in this book that I can 100% prove happened at that establishment, at that building. I'm not I would have to go back through and look at like death certificates and stuff like that, but I don't know how many people are buried. Every poor farm also had a poor farm cemetery.
Okay.
A lot of people don't know where that cemetery is. Not just with like Edinburgh, but like with like Randolph County, they have, I don't think they have any idea. Even our own poor farm where I live, I have a pretty good idea of where it is, but they are typically overgrown. They were never maintained, I guess. So a lot of people are farming over bodies and they have no idea. Yeah. Poor farms typically.
I wouldn't suggest like trying to go if it's like if they're farming it, I wouldn't try to go out there. You might sink a little bit. But I mean, I guess if it was like beans or something, you could try that way. Or just don't do the corn.
Right.
Like that's like my biggest fear. I wouldn't be able to get out.
You'd be stuck. Just keep walking one way. I mean,
I'm not. That's probably will never happen because I would like a maze. So just if it's beans, I think you should be okay because you could see that, but just don't do corn. Okay, fine. Just find a different one.
I mean, hell, we got like Google Maps now. Anyway, like you can just like hone in, so you know what. Just follow the dot, like you know.
That'd be my luck. I'm like, I don't know how to read it.
You're like, oh god.
I'd be calling you and be like, I don't know where I'm at. Let me ping you.
I'd be like, which way is the dot?
Right.
I mean, it happens.
It does.
It happens. But I did bring, like, I have a copy of Edinburgh on here for now. I wanted to be able to show people what they could expect because I think that a lot of people, they don't really know what to expect with these books. And I don't really know that it's really explained anywhere. It might be. But Josh and I, when we were doing We Are Malvern Manor, we wanted the concept to be simple, to understand and just easy to use in general. So we geared these towards paranormal investigators, and remind me to tell you about a really cool experiment that Kat did. She did such an awesome thing, and I'll tell you about it here in a minute. But so when Josh and I think you got a spiral, didn't you?
I did. Yeah. I have one. Yep.
So the goal was to make it easy to understand, easy to use, and easy to incorporate in like a paranormal investigation period. So what we did is we made a spiral bound copy of all of them. The only one that you cannot get in spiral bound is Randolph County Infirmary. And that is because it's too big. I found for Randolph County Infirmary, I think I found 501 deaths that I could prove on property for that one. I should have split that into 2 books, but that idea didn't even really come to me until after we published, and I realized that it was so giant and so big. It was expensive. Printing costs are expensive. And like, I don't think, also another thing is like when you sell on Amazon and you self-publish these things, when you sell, do global distribution, they make you set the price at a certain amount to cover like Amazon fees and like Barnes and Noble, wherever they sell these books at, you have to pay so many fees in order to be able to do that. So that's what ends up kicking the price of your book up to make it expensive. I should have split Randolph County into 2 books, but lesson learned. That's why we're splitting Asylum 49 into 5 books total.
Only 5. It's not a big deal. Just 5.
There's so many of them. I was like quite impressed. I'm so excited. But anyway, so this is what we came up with. We wanted when Josh and I were talking, we wanted a spiral bound notebook. And the reason is that if you're coming up, let's say that you're using a SV7 or I don't know, Spiritus or whatever communication app, Ouija board. I don't care what it is. So you get a name. So in this book, the all the names, they're in alphabetical order by first name. And that is because whenever you're using a communication device, you typically get their first name. It's like, who am I speaking to? And they're going to be like, Dawn or whatever. So you're going to be able to flip through. It's an alphabetical order by first name, and the name is in the lower right-hand corner. And that is to make it easy to find the person you're looking for. Instead of having to go back to like an index to find it, you can simply just flip it like this, and the name is in the bottom right-hand corner so that you can find who you're looking for. So let's just say that you're looking for someone named James. You can flip through until you see James, and then you can, the concept of the spiral notebook is that you can just place it on the table. It remains open for you. And there's usually room on these pages to write notes if you want to write notes. These are meant to be marked in, wrote on, highlighted, whatever it is that you want to do. We made the pages a heavier weight paper so that it would be sturdy. But the idea with the, like I said, the spiral is so that it remains open, flat on the surface. You don't have to worry about it closing with like the paperback version. There is paperback versions in all of these. The spiral bound versions, you can only order through Josh or I, because Lulu doesn't allow you to release spiral bound versions on any of their publishing things. These are things that we have to order on our own. Otherwise, they would be available for purchase just like this, and that's it. But if you want a spiral bound version, like I said, you can contact me, and I would be happy to get these for you. But so it's open. You can write in the back. I was like, well, in the off chance that maybe they're trying to do research and they ask for a last name and they get a last name only and they don't have a first name, what then? Well, they're in alphabetical order. In the back, we have indexes. They're in alphabetical order by last name. And it tells you what page to find them on. Then we also put them in order by year of death in case you wanted to see if there's any trends or do any experiments. It's by month of death and year of death. As you can see, these are all August. It tells you who all died in August. It tells you which, we also did include, since I just saw that, note sections in the back that you can make notes on. I don't think in future versions I'm going to do that, simply because that just makes it cost more. And I want it to be cost efficient. I want people to not have to pay an arm and a leg for these, but unfortunately my hands are tied because they make you charge so much. I mean, the prices, print costs are insane. So we have, and here's all of the years that I was telling you about. They're in year, and it tells you like who died in what year and what page you can find them on. Let me see. Another cool thing about Poor Farms, censuses, let me just say, are extremely hard to find for institutions. You pretty much have to figure out who's going to be on the census and look for that specific name. Because they're hard to find, I figured if I had access to that information, other people could have access to that information. So I have all of the U.S. censuses that I could find here in the back of the book, so you can see the census records. Some of these people are in this book. Other people I've never found. I've never even found record of their death on some of these people. So, like, if you can find it, then I mean, the information's here for you. You can cross-reference those names. I tried to. I didn't find all of them. So there is one. Iowa does have state censuses. Like the U.S. Census was every 10 years. So you have, like 1890, 1900, 1910, 1920, 1930, 1940, 1950 censuses. Iowa state censuses does every 10 years on the off year, or every 10 years on the off years. So the Iowa state census, they have like 1885,
Mhm.
19, let's see. Yeah, they have the 19. Some of these I didn't find. It just depends on how they put them. But yeah, they did censuses on like the off years. So you'd have like 1905, 1915, 1925, 1935. I did notice that like Iowa, the way that they did their state censuses back in the day, towards the later years, was not helpful for me. So I did not include those. They would have it on like cards, and it
Mhm.
would just say, you know, so and so. This is what they did for a living. This is what where they lived, and it wasn't like a listed census like you see a traditional census. So I never, if I tried to put all those cards in there, like I would have 20 books for.
So we got like divide up 6 books. Book
Yeah.
of 6. Yep.
An interesting thing, I believe it is the 1890 census. It's either the
Mhm.
1890 or the 1900. It's the 1890 census. There was a fire at the building that kept all of the U.S. censuses. The 1890 census is the one that was
Mhm.
damaged. So most states don't have an 1890 census. So if anybody is ever wondering why there is not an 1890 census and we have all the others, that is why, is because it got burnt up. Nobody has access to it. So,
So tell us about that experiment. Now I'm sitting here pondering, waiting.
oh yes,
Yes,
I wish
she got way off topic. She's like talking. She's like, I'll
I
get
did.
to that in a second. I'll get to that in a second.
So Kat, she did a very, very cool experiment, and it was something that I never honestly would have thought of. So whenever we got this book, and
Mhm.
people that help me with these books,
Mhm.
and establishment owners, they get free copies of these books because I feel like it's important that they should know the history
Right.
of their buildings. I think that everybody should have that. Anyway, so she took this book and she opened it up, and she was on live. You can find that video. I think it's Paranormal Exposures
Okay.
is her Facebook thing, but she opened this book and she started reading the names like a roll call. Like if you were sitting in school and the teacher was going down the list calling names, and she's like,
Mhm.
if you hear your name, say you're present. If you want to talk, we'll have a chat or whatever.
Mhm.
She did that for Edinburgh and she did that for Malvern, both at both locations. And the response she got was amazing. You would hear, like on these lives, you would hear here, here, or present, or hello, as she would come across like these names. I will tell you that Josh has talked to a lot of people that have
Mhm.
copies of We Are Malvern Manor. There have been names in that book that have popped up when they were investigating um, around the manor. That, like, I'm pretty sure with Edinburgh as well, people that are investigating and they come up with a name and they look in the book and boom, there it is. And that was the cool part about this book, is having that validation that
Mhm.
like we're doing something good. And also with that, let's just say that you get um, I don't know, Ophelia Knight. Let's say that you're talking to Ophelia Knight at Edinburgh. You have
Mhm.
access to all of the information that we know about her. You know
Okay.
what her date of birth is. You know when she died. You know what she died from. And obituaries, they typically say like children's names. These are your children. I saw that you had a son named George and a daughter named Lydia, or whatever the case may be. I see that you lost a baby. You know, these are all like points of interest that kind of open the door for communication and things that maybe you could talk about, um, to establish a rapport with
Mhm.
people, because they're people. I mean, at the end of the
Right.
day.
Right. I mean, that is kind of an interesting experiment. Like, I would never in a million years think of something like that. Honestly, I really wouldn't.
It was really awesome to see that. And like I said, let me make sure I'm telling you right, because
She better be
um,
telling us, right?
Let me see. Let me look on Facebook here.
She doesn't know.
Yes, Paranormal Exposures.
Okay.
That's their Facebook.
And we can find that video on there.
I'm pretty sure. Let me look. Yes, you can. I know you can, because that's where she went live from.
Okay.
But if you scroll down and look through, let's see, they were just at Malvern not too long ago. Kat and her husband and some other people, and she is like one of the best people ever. If anybody ever has the pleasure of talking to her, she is amazing. But yes, if you scroll down there, it's there, and it's very, very, very interesting to watch. Because, like I said, she just goes through like a roll call, and is like, are you here? Are you, and the way that she interacts with spirits, she's so tender and gentle, and just she's careful. You know what I mean?
Right. And because some people are pretty aggressive. Like I've just noticed that. And some people are just aggressive.
I love her approach, and like her approach with the spirits is how she is like with the living. She's very approachable. She's very kind. She's very giving. She's really an amazing person. And I would encourage everybody to go check out her page. She helped me tremendously on Edinburgh Manor. It's on there somewhere. I was going to try to pull it up.
It's on there.
But she did do it with Malvern as well.
Okay.
She did the roll call with Malvern as well, and it was really interesting results. And like I said, I am in the process of revamping Malvern Manor, and I hope that I can get it up to par with the rest of them. I mean, you can kind of tell that was our first one.
I mean, I liked it. You know what I mean? I did. I mean, I still have it. I mean,
it's
not like I just tossed it in the trash. It's like, oh.
Yeah. Well, see, and the thing about Malvern Manor is that, like, I didn't have access to any of the death certificates, because, like, the time cutoff was in, like, 1955, 1960. And that place didn't even turn into a nursing home until like it was either the late 1950s or the late 1960s. I can't remember. So I don't have access to death certificates for them, unfortunately. But I do find pictures on Find a Grave that people upload. Those go in my books. Everything in these books is things that you can find online, things that are public domain, things that people have posted. This has never been, none of this information is something that I would ever get from just like a person. I don't want anybody to think that like I'm getting all of this information and just posting it without permission. It's all on public forum. This is all available to any one of us. The only difference is I put it in one spot to where you can find it.
Right. And that makes sense. I mean, so do you have any plans for another book?
Right now, I'm just working on the Asylum 49 series and trying to get that done. After that, I honestly don't know. I don't know. I'm hoping to have all of those done by Halloween, and the revamp of We Are Malvern Manor. I'm hoping to have that done. I want to see if I can find just more information. Like, I know in the revamp, Eunice's death certificate is going to be in there because I have access to that. Inez Gibson, her death certificate is going to be in there. Her pictures from her family is going to be in there. Newspaper articles associated with both of them are going to be in there. There's just going to be a lot. And I am finding, this is before, like I said, before before I figured out that, like, you know, pictures that, like, so I'm starting to compile pictures of all of these people, like not all of them, but some of them.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think comes in handy because, like, if you have pictures of people and you see a spirit, you may be able to figure out who it is just based on what they look like.
So I know that you've been to Melbourne Manor. So do you capture
Mhm.
anything and then put them in the book?
No, I haven't, but that's a good
Uh-huh.
idea. Um,
I know.
I
That's
know,
the only kind I have.
right? We might have to talk.
Yeah, we're gonna have to talk.
I know not too long ago, Josh got a picture, and I don't know who it's from, but it was like a really cool picture,
You
and it
actually sent
looked
it to
like,
me.
yeah, it looked like a little girl, and it looked
Mm-hmm.
like she had like the cap sleeve. It looked like an ankle length gown or
Mm-hmm.
dress, I guess. And it looked like it had the cap sleeves, and like on the arms, they were like fleshy colored. They were
Mm-hmm.
like fleshy toned. Um, like I said, as far as we know, there's only two little girls that reside in there. There's Inez, which Inez did not die on property. She died elsewhere, and why she's there, I have no idea. I don't think anybody does. Maybe I don't know. In the news book, there are some interesting articles which may explain why she's there. Her dad, or what I call her dad, it was not her
Mm-hmm.
biological father. It was her uncle, but he adopted her. But he was hit by a car and taken
Mm-hmm.
to the Cottage Hotel, which is what we call Malvern Manor today, where he almost died. And he was unresponsive. It collapsed his lung, broke both of his legs, and he was there in an unresponsive state for a day or two. I can't remember exactly what the article said because I've looked at so many, but yeah. And you'll see, like, one of my favorite parts about these books is like through these articles you start to see like these stories form. You
Mm-hmm.
start to see like and some of the deaths, the obituaries that you see in Malvern Manor, like when you read it, you'll notice that like the pallbearers were all residents of Malvern Manor. It wasn't any of their family. Um, these are things that like I'm saying now that I've never pointed out to anybody because
Mm-hmm.
I was curious if anybody would pick up on it. So far nobody has. Maybe it's just because they haven't said anything, but I think it's really cool when you start to look at these stories. Like this man and his wife, they moved into Nishna Cottage, is what
Mm-hmm.
Malvern Manor was called, and it was a home for the elderly. Um, but him and his wife moved in there because they could no longer take care of themselves, and they moved into Nishna Cottage. His wife died there, and he ended up remarrying another resident of Nishna Cottage that lived there at the same time he did. He ended up remarrying her, and then he himself died in Nishna Cottage a few years later. So him and his first wife both died at that property. You have um, Ethel Chantry. She's one of the cooler, not the cooler, I guess, but Josh has a singer at Malvern Manor. I don't know if anybody has ever seen his TikToks, um, but he gets them to sing. And there's a really pretty singer that
Mm-hmm.
she will come across the geoport and she will sing. And I wonder if it's Ethel Chantry. Ethel Chantry, her husband, Forrest, they had a school of music that was dedicated to Ethel. Ethel used to
Mm-hmm.
go to Nishna Cottage and entertain the residents there by singing and things. And then when she became elderly and no longer could care for herself, she ended up as a patient at that same establishment that she entertained for, and she did die there. She did die there, and gosh, I can't remember how old she was. I want to say she was like in her 90s. Um,
Oh
but
wow.
but she would go and she entertained for the patients there. She sung there, and she ended up dying there. Things with like Malvern Manor, they were very looking through like the news book and all of that. You started like parties and festivities were a big thing. Like back in the day, they had a king and queen during like Valentine's Day, and it was published in the paper, you know, who was crowned king and queen, and they had outings, they had like hot dog roast and dances. They called them jubilees. I think that was just such a funny word, but
it kind of is. It kind of is.
They had like jubilees and music and dancing and just entertainment all the way around. It was actually really, really cool. And like with Edinburgh, if you read some of the stuff in there, it's kind of the same. It's the same deal. You read some of these really cool stories about the people that used to live there, and it's hard not to get attached. I mean, honestly.
Right. So if somebody were to want to buy your book, how would you go about that?
Well, I currently have a book sale going on. I made a post. I had to think about where I was going here. But that you guys can just inbox me, Tory Smith Westoff, on Facebook, and I can definitely hook you up, because like I said, right now, like printing costs and what they make you charge, it's insane. I'm doing pre-orders for Asylum 49. The Amazon price for that, if you were to order it off Amazon, is going to be $50 and 86 cents. I'm offering it on pre-order for $35, and that's free shipping, and you can get paperback or coil bound. There's also going to be, I have Randolph County right now on sale. The online Amazon price is $78.96. I will get you Randolph County for $55, and that's paperback only, and that's free shipping. The one that you just saw, Edinburgh, on Amazon, that is $50.56. I'll sell it to you for $35, free shipping, paperback or coil bound. And Malvern Manor is $39.84 on Amazon. And
do I get an autographed copy if I buy one?
Well, absolutely. It might take a while because we have to mail it back and forth.
No, I just wanted yours. I already have one with Josh's.
Yeah. I can definitely sign it. And all of these, we are willing to sign it. It's just going to take a hot minute, because they'll come to me and then I sign them, and then I have to mail them to Josh, and then he signs them, and then he has to mail them on. So it would take a while.
Yeah. Like I got one from Josh, but I haven't got one from Tory. And if a lot of people don't know, Tory and I are actually really good friends. So
right. She listens to all of my shenanigans.
Yes.
She has listened to all of this stuff with me doing these books. Like I can only imagine, like, when you're listening to me talk and you're like, man, I already know. How many times have I called you stressed out?
A lot, actually, a lot. Like, you know, and there was like some times we didn't talk because she was like so wrapped up in her book, like writing her books and stuff like that. And I full-heartedly get that. But you know, that's life. But
they are a lot of work, and I try very, very hard to make sure that they're very accurate. I want them to be accurate, and I want them to be enjoyable, and I want people to be able to appreciate what's in them. And I don't know, just call me a sap, I guess, but like I get very
high beams.
High beams. Hi, buddy. I get very invested in the stories.
Right.
And I think it's I can see him cocking his head while I'm talking. Yeah, Bean's the hairy human. But like on one of these news articles, I think it was Edinburgh, like it was talking about the state of their Poor Farm Cemetery. And sorry, I had to cough. It was talking about the state of the Pearl Farm Cemetery, and there's an article in there that talks about how they like they were trying to bury somebody in their cemetery, and it was so overfull that when they stuck the shovel in the ground to dig out to put somebody else in, they chopped somebody else's feet off. And
Okay. Wait, that's not in your book, is it? Because now I don't want it.
it is.
I don't want it now.
It
I
is.
don't want it.
Yeah.
Joking.
But that, I mean, is kind of
so. Like, where would I go if, like, I wanted to try to find like a farm like that? Now you got me curious.
Every county in the United States had to have a poor farm cemetery, or a poor farm. Every county, they had to have a poor farm because that's how they took care of their poor. And I believe most counties had them. You just have to try to find them and where they're at.
So, like, where would I go? Like, I can't. Do I just Google it, or do I have to like? Go
you
to, like,
could.
I don't know.
Because
usually, now I'm curious because I'm going to probably try.
Yeah, see if you can find yours. Most of the time, it was their county and then cemetery or poor farm. So Edinburgh is in Jones County, Jones County, Iowa. So it'd be Jones County Poor Farm, or Jones County Home, or the Jones County House, or the Jones County Alms House. It's usually the county name, and then the several words that they use.
Well, is that why, like, sometimes, like, in the field, there's like one, like, they didn't have like their stones, right? They just kind of put them there.
Yep.
Is that what I'm understanding?
Paupers' graves. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So now you
sometimes if they had stones, they were very simple. It'd be like James, like June 1st, 1926. And that's it.
Well, like I said, there's this one farm, and it has like one stone out there, and I was always curious, but I'm not going to walk out there. Well, I probably would.
Now, back in the day, that it was also popular for people to have like family plots. So, like,
but that's the only stone out there. Like, you would assume that there would be like some other things because they're still like, I don't know. I'm still going to check it out because now, like I've seriously have considered like graveyard hopping during the day. There's a couple I wanted to check out.
Yeah, you should.
I'm not allowed to do at night.
County homes typically were located towards the county capital, if you will, or and that is because the county was responsible for the people within the poor farm. They had to pay for their medical care, and they had to pay for their clothing and all of that. So if somebody at the poor farm needed to see a doctor, they would have to have a doctor go out. So they were typically close to their county seat, because they didn't want to have to pay a doctor from another town to drive all the way up, or horse and buggy, or however the hell they got there, because that would cost them more money. So they were
they're going to fly there to get in their car and drive.
Right. Some of these county farms started in like the late 1860s. So, I mean, you have, I think poor farms became mandatory somewhere in the late 1860s, 70s, 1880s, right around in there.
And like I said, I'm still curious though, as far as like people from prison going there. And I know that you said that like there was, as far as you weren't sure on the criteria for like, but now I'm curious. You have like my mind, like the wheels are turning.
Poor farms were typically like 100 to, they were typically about like average 150 acres. So that's how big they were.
But I didn't want to be like, I wouldn't want to be there with like somebody that like murdered somebody.
Well, you didn't.
I know, like here, I know, I didn't, but you know me. I'd be like, this is going to work for me.
There are some instances where, like, let's say that you had 160 acres of county farm, and then your county home would be on this side, and then they're farming that, and then your prison would be on this side, and they would also
they had their
that.
So they had their like own prison.
In some cases. In some cases, they utilize like the prisoners and like their population for the county home all in the same thing. Not all of them did that.
I still would be pretty upset about that. Not that. I still would be. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. There are.
Well, they handled things differently back then, though, too.
Yeah, they did. A lot of, I guess it just depends on who you talk to, because some people are like, county homes were great. They took care of the needy, and they, they offered a roof and food and all of that stuff. But there was also, like, I know that, like, in my family, like, my granny was afraid to go to the poor farm. Like, she would talk about that after her husband died. She was afraid she was going to go to the poor farm. A lot of people were scared that's where they were going to end up, and I'm not really sure why, but I do know that there are a lot of stories where people were not treated good. There, and I can't remember. It's either Edinburgh or it's Randolph County Infirmary, where I think it was. Anyway, there's articles in there that talk about how, like, the supervisor. So they would have in the county homes, they would have the supervisor, or it would be him and his family that would basically live on the farm and make sure everybody did what they were supposed to do. They were kind of like, like a hall monitor for a dorm, kind of.
Right.
That was kind of their role. But there's articles where, they beat people up, and like, these people would bring these concerns to, like, the county commissioners. All of this stuff, like, every poor farm proceeding is in every newspaper, and their local newspapers, because it was ran by the county. So you're going to look for, like, county minutes and things like that. Every poor farm had a ledger of who came, who went, who died, who went to the, state asylums and all of that stuff. Okay. Unfortunately, most of those ledgers don't exist anymore, but there are some that do. Randolph County is one of those that they have the ledgers at their local historical society that you can look at. But a lot of them kept ledgers, and it tells you whether or not they're buried in the poor farm cemetery. But yeah, there was a lot of accusations on a lot of these things where, people were claiming that they were beaten, that they were mistreated, whatever the case may be. And, there's, like, one of the articles is like, it's like the commissioners acknowledged that, the county, the supervisor, like, beat somebody up, like, incredibly bad, but they found it was founded because, I don't know why, but I mean, so yeah. County farms, if anybody has an opportunity to look into them, they are pretty fascinating. Pretty fascinating.
Well,
we'll have to see where yours is.
Yeah, I'm going to. I'm like,
I bet I could find it.
I bet you could.
Quickly.
Probably. And then I have to I got to see where it's at. Because I just, you know how I am. I'm always curious about something. So yeah. Yes.
It's going to be, I don't know. It's going to be fun. Hopefully we can find it.
We will. So if anybody's interested in a book, you can get a hold of Tory, and we won't keep her much longer on her wonderful Friday nights.
Yeah. I'm not really doing anything, so just sitting here.
But if you guys can't find Tory and you can find me, I will point you in the right direction. So I will see you guys next Friday.
And if anybody has any questions, please feel free to send me a message. You can send Josh a message. Yep. You can send Rainey a message, and she'll get you in touch with me. I'm pretty easy to find, really. I'm not exactly timely on my message responses sometimes, but I try.
She's early text messages. So
in real life, I'm an ER nurse, and I work nights. So if I don't get a hold of you during the day, I'm likely sleeping. or at night I'm likely working. So, but we try. Like I said.
All right. So I will see you guys next week.